So this is going to be a very strange what if, but it's going to be a what if that I think you guys like. If you guys don't like it, you don't have to do anything special. You just comment what I did wrong and what I could fix if I do this another time. But this is what if Deku, Femme Deku, it's going to be female, because I prefer female what ifs to normal what ifs. It's going to be what if Femme Deku was a werewolf and a vampire. So I know most people are like, hybrids, oh, you're just going to do Underworld, or oh, you're just going to base it off of Twilight. No, I am not going to, but I'm going to base it off of some gods from a game I play called Smite. And this game is really fun. It has a god named Fenrir, or Fenrir, whatever you want to say it. I prefer saying it like that because it's more dramatic. But Fenrir is a wolf god that has been bound by the Norse gods and is the catalyst for Ragnarok. But this quirk is going to be called Unchained Beast. And during the day, she is going to have increased claws. Completely, at all times, she's going to have glowing arms. It's going to look like a little bit of lava, and she's going to have these cuffs on her hands. Oh, sorry. She's going to have these cuffs on her hands, like, that she can never take off. And on her legs. And they're going to be made out of cast iron that can't be broken by anything. It's part of her quirk. And her arms and legs are covered in molten stuff, but it doesn't burn anything. And she has fingers that have claws at the end, but when she doesn't want anything cut, it can't cut. And the one downside of her quirk is that she needs blood instead of normal food. And she has an insatiable hunger. So one day she's walking down the street one day her mother's walking down the street and smells something while she's pregnant, and she's like, this is strange. I smell something sweet. And she goes, and she's she has a quirk, and her quirk relies on her taking in blood to use it. And she's noticed lately that she's been addicted to the taste of blood. So a few more months into the pregnancy, and she goes into labor, and Izumi is born. Izumi Midoriya. It's not going to be Inko Midoriya in this one. It's not. And her daughter was born, and she had a one-night stand with some random dude, and this dude is just up and gone. She's never seen him after that. She doesn't even remember what he looks like. And she sees her daughter has a mutation type quirk. Her daughter has ears, a tail, claws and fur all over her arms and legs. And she has really long hair for being just an infant that just came out of a womb. And we're going to skip 3 months, and she's finally been able to find out what she eats, and it's blood. She can only have blood. Otherwise, she's going to get sick. And she's like, I'm sorry, but I can't take care of this child. The blood is too expensive to buy on a regular basis, and I can't. So she gives the child up for adoption. And there's a hero who has a quirk that relies on blood. And they're like, I could barely sustain myself. If I get a child that has a blood-based quirk that needs blood constantly, I can barely sustain them too. So let's do it. And she looks at her husband and says, okay, sweetie, it's a yes from me. What about you? And he looks at her and says, you can barely sustain yourself. If I start pitching in and buying blood for you guys, I'm going to have less food, but I also don't need as much food as you guys, so let's do it. And she says, thank you. And they go to the woman and says, we will adopt your child so your child has a good upbringing. And she goes, okay, the only thing I wish is for you to tell me your guys' name. Sorry, I just hit something. And they say, sure. And this man says, my name is Shota Aizawa, and she is, who is that one blood person? And, trying to think of someone who has a blood-based ability. So there is that one person in, I don't know. So you guys need to tell me a name if I do this series, but, so, they say, okay, I understand, and I have a question for you, and they say, sure, shoot, and they say, can you sustain the amount of blood that she eats daily? And Aizawa's eyes widen, saying, so she eats blood daily. Can she have normal food? And she goes, no, sadly, no. My quirk was based on blood, and I can't sustain the use of my quirk and hers at the same time. And they ask, but you can eat normal food. And she goes, I need normal food and blood to stay alive. And they go, oh, okay, that makes sense. And they ask, so how many blood bags does she need a day? And she says that she needs one a week, but if she starts using her quirk and starts running around constantly, she'll start needing one every 2 days. They go, okay, makes sense. So I'm going to skip 10 years where she's been known as the werewolf vampire, and the vampiric werewolf in school, and everybody makes fun of her being a vampire and a werewolf at the same time. And everybody says that she's a monster that shouldn't even be alive, and she's closed herself off to everybody except for her adoptive mother and father. And she doesn't know that she's adopted. She just knows that they take care of her very well. And UA is not a college in this one, and they already have the dorm system. And Aizawa finally goes up to her and asks, sweetie, what is your dreams for the future? And she goes, I want to be a hero like you and mom. And he goes, okay, I'll get training you quickly. And so they start training. Another 6 years pass, and he says, I'm sorry, but I can't give you a recommendation because I forgot to get the forms, and you're going to have to go through the entrance exams. And she goes, that's fine. I was actually planning on doing the entrance exams. And he goes, okay. And his wife walks into the room and says, sweetie, can I talk to you in the other room? And she goes, yeah, you can. And they walk out, and Aizawa goes, I can't tell her that I lied to her about the recommendation forms. I just knew she was going to go to the exams. And her mom says to her that you need to be careful with your quirk, because once you use your quirk, you go a little crazy. And she goes, I know. I've done this multiple times, Mom. So it's now the day of the entrance exams, and the entrance exams basically go to canon with Ida interrupting and pointing out Deku, Izumi in this one, Izumi Midoriya, but now her name is Izumi Aizawa, saying that she's being too loud and that there's something wrong with her if he acts like a mutt inside, and he starts berating her for being a mutation type quirk. And Mike, who's trained with her before, knows that if she goes crazy, she can rip people limb from limb. And he goes, okay, listener, whatever number he was, and It's time for the practical exam. I don't need to explain the fourth one because the fourth one is a 0-pointer. It explains itself. It's an obstacle. Now get out there before some of our examinees kill themselves from boredom, and some other examinees rip other examinees limb from limb because of boredom. And Mike goes, "Oh, that was a close one." And he sees Izumi just seething with rage from Ida insulting her. Ida goes to the area, and Izumi sees that this girl is just freaking out in the front. And she's like, I need to go help that girl. And she sees Ida in her path, and she's like, he's gonna stop me for some reason, and I'm gonna rip him limb from limb, so I'll just jump over the crowd. And she uses her legs, which are very strong, to jump over the entire crowd. And she lands in front of the crowd, and she starts talking to this girl, calming her down, and she gets the name of this girl, and it's Mina Ashido. And she asks, why is she so nervous? And Mina says, I'm nervous because I don't know if my quirk can handle all this action. And she goes, what is your quirk? And Mina, they're talking and talking. It's like 10 minutes later, and Mike says, okay, everybody's ready. We're starting in 10, and the doors start opening, and Izumi immediately bursts through the doors because they started opening. So she ran to the doors and used her strength to rip the doors open further so she can get fully through. And she transformed into full Fenrir mode, which transformed her from a human wolf hybrid to a wolf human hybrid, which it's a wolf that has a human build. And she's just running like a wolf on all fours and ripping the robots limb from limb. And she's bigger than a normal. She's 3 times bigger than All Might in this form. And she's ripping the robots apart. And all of a sudden, she just stops and shrinks. And it's like, God damn, that's like so much energy. And then she just starts running like a wolf again on all fours at super speed, but she's half human, half wolf again. The difference between half wolf, half human is the wolf basically has everything a wolf does: wolf face, wolf arms, wolf legs, with a very furry chest. And they have the natural look of a wolf when they are on all fours, but they have the chest of a human with the abs and the shape of a human's chest, unless they're on all fours, which then their shoulder blades poke up, so they look more like a wolf. And it's now, she looks like a female human with wolf features: the ears, the teeth, the claws, and the ears, the teeth, and the claws, and the strength and speed of a wolf. So just getting that out there. So she's ripping them apart, and all of a sudden the 0-pointer comes out, and she's like, chew toy! Yes! And she looks at the 0-pointer, and then hears this cry for help, and she looks down and sees Mina under the rubble. And she runs over to Mina and cuts the rubble in half with her super ridiculously strong claws. And Mina says, thank you, and runs away saying, what are you doing? Why are you staying there? And Izumi, who's going part dog at this point, because wolves are also in the dog family, just points, says, chew toy, and runs at the 0-pointer and starts cutting it limb from limb and having fun ripping it to shreds. And the wiring is there, and she starts chewing on the wiring like a dog. And Aizawa goes, oh, damn it, told her not to overuse her quirk. And they all look at him and go, what do you mean? And he goes, that's my adoptive daughter, and if she overuses her quirk, she acts like a dog. So the only way to calm her down is with chew toys and things to play with, until she finally reverts to human mindset. And they go, oh, okay, I kind of understand. And he goes, see? And then he brings out a squeaky toy that is really high-pitched squeak, so only dogs can hear it. And Mike says, okay, the test is over. And she's just still sitting there chewing on the metal and the wires. And she can easily bite through metal with her jaw strength. And Aizawa walks up to this area and brings out a squeaky toy and squeaks it once. And she bolts her head up and looks over and sees Aizawa. And he shakes the toy and throws it to All Might, who cocks his arm back because he's at this point and throws it as hard as he can at 100%. And she sees it fly off into the distance and she bolts after it. And All Might was told to throw it just right so it lands in Aizawa's yard. And All Might is like, sure, I'll do that. And so he points towards Aizawa's house, and Aizawa goes, no, it's 2 degrees to your left from that point. So he shifts his weight just a tiny bit, and he chucks it at full strength and lands in Aizawa's backyard. And Izumi, who's as fast as the ball at this moment, lands and jumps over the fence and catches it in midair right before it hits the ground. And she starts chewing on it, and Aizawa's like, now if she's actually there, I'll give you what I promised you. And he goes, you better. And he goes, don't worry, I'll give you it. And Aizawa goes home after that and walks to his backyard and sees Izumi playing with the chew toy that is hyper resistant to her bite force and sharp teeth. And she's just playing with it like a normal dog would. And he walks out and says, Izumi. And she starts to calm down, and because she's been playing with it for like a few minutes, she calms down and she goes back to human mindset where she's like, oh God, I did it again, didn't I? And he goes, yeah, you did. She goes, damn it, I overused my quirk again. He goes, yeah, but you lasted a lot longer before you went all doggo mode. And she goes, you can stop calling it doggo mode. It's dog mode. No, it's doggo mode. And then they start arguing about it, and finally the lady of the house comes home and says, you could stop goddamn arguing about what kind of mode it is and come and eat dinner. And Izumi runs in the house and on 2 legs instead of all 4s because she's not in doggo mode anymore. And she sits at the table and grabs the blood bag that her mom brought home and says, thank you. It starts drinking, and she goes, wait for your father to get here. And she goes, I'm hungry. She goes, still, wait. She goes, fine. So she puts down the bag of blood and she starts waiting, and Aizawa finally gets to the table, sits down, and Izumi immediately starts drinking again. And he goes, okay, so by the performance that Izumi played today, she's most likely in, so we gotta get her ready for the dorms. And Izumi looks at him and goes, dorms? You didn't say there was dorms. And he goes, oh yeah, there's dorms at UA now, or there has been for a little bit, but most people don't know that. They're for people with special quirks or people who don't have homes on the outside of UA. So you're going with a very specific kind of room. And she goes, is it one that can withstand my doggo mode? And she put air quotes around it, and he goes, exactly. And he starts laughing his ass off, being like, she accepted it. Yes. And her mother and her adoptive mother says, you guys need to stop arguing about that. And Izumi goes, it's not a doggo mode, it's dog mode. And no, and her mother goes, no, it's doggo mode, but you guys still need to stop arguing about it. And she goes, it's not doggo mode. She goes, yeah, it is. And they start arguing, and they go, fine, we'll call it dog mode one day, and the other day you got to call it doggo mode, so we can stop arguing about this. And she goes, fine. And now everybody goes to sleep, and Izumi's just sleeping in her room. A few weeks pass. Izumi's at the dorm, just sitting on on the couch like a normal human, and she smells this a familiar scent. And she turns around and says, "Oh, hi, Mina." And Mina hasn't noticed her, and Mina turns around quickly and drops what she was holding and goes, "Oh, Izumi!" and runs over and hugs Izumi and goes, "Oh my god, it's nice to see you." And and Izumi goes, "So you're in class 1A?" And Mina goes, "Yeah, I am." Surprisingly, and Izumi goes, "Nah, it's not surprising. You had an acid quirk. Acid works good against metal. It's kind of science." And Mina goes, "Okay, one question." And Izumi goes, "Sure, what is it?" "What was that doggo mode?" And Izumi goes, "Oh, I turn that whenever I overuse my quirk. I turn dog-brained, and I kind of chase anything that is squeaky and fun to chew on." And Mina goes, "So you do have a doggo mode?" And Izumi goes, "Yeah." And Aizawa, who's currently napping behind the couch because he prefers to nap near Izumi because he feels more comfortable around her than anybody else, hears that she accepted the name doggo mode from Mina, not from him or his wife, and goes, so he stands up and he goes, "Izumi, you accepted the name." And she goes, "Screw off, old man," and goes back to talking to Mina. And Mina goes, "Who's that?" And she goes, "Oh, that's my dad." And they just go back to talking. And like a few seconds later, Mina's like, hold up. You just brushed off that your dad is in the same dorm as you." And she goes, "Oh yeah, he's our teacher." And Mina goes, "But how did he get behind the couch?" And she goes, "Oh, he's been there the entire time." And he goes, "So I stepped over him?" And she goes, "Yeah, he kind of has the way to not get hurt by anything, get noticed by anybody, so you kind of did step over him." And she goes, "Oh, okay. So your dad is the underground hero, Eraserhead." She goes, "Yeah." And Mina goes, "Okay, what is your quirk, though?" And she says, "My quirk is called the Bringer of Ragnarok, Fenrir, and I don't know why it's called the Bringer of Ragnarok. I know the legends, but I don't know why it's called the Bringer of Ragnarok. Because I want to be a hero, not a destroyer." And Mina goes, "Maybe because of the history behind that character?" And she goes, "True, but I don't plan on destroying anything." And Mina goes, "True, but there's also a chance that you could, and with your doggo mode." And Izumi goes, "Okay, first off, it's not a doggo mode, and second off, I only go dog mode whenever I overuse my quirk. So," and Mina goes, "It's a doggo mode." And Izumi goes, "No, yes, no, yes, no." And they finally say, "Okay, I'll claim it's a doggo mode if you can beat me in an arm wrestle." And Mina goes, "Sure." So they go to the table in the common room and get ready for an arm wrestling match. And Mina says, "I've never been beaten by anybody." And Izumi says, "I haven't been beaten by anybody either. It's time for the both unbeaten champions in our old schools to see who's stronger." And they start. A good minute passes before Izumi starts getting a head up on Mina because Izumi has more stamina with her strength. So Mina is losing, and then all of a sudden Mina pulls out a strength card by burning a little bit of Izumi's hand with her acid to weaken Izumi's hand, and then slam Izumi's hand in the table. And Izumi says, "No fair! You used your quirk." And Mina says, "Yeah, you used your quirk too." And she goes, "No, I just used my innate strength." And Mina says, "Yeah, that is your quirk." And Izumi goes, "Well, duh. I'm as strong as a wolf." And Mina goes, no, you're as strong as a dog. They go, no, yes, no, yes. They start arguing again, like they're married, kind of arguing. And Aizawa is hearing this and starts to laugh, saying, if you guys like each other that much, just get married already. And Izumi hides her face, and it starts to get pink. And Mina's like, I'm going to my room. I'll be back tomorrow. And Mina goes and runs to her room and starts to freak out, like, oh my god, do we really sound like that? So it's the next day, and it's the first day of school, and Mina and Izumi are currently talking in the common room when everybody else walks in saying, it's time for class, let's go. And Izumi sees the stick up the ass kind of person that Ida is and goes, before we leave, I want to tell everybody what my quirk is and who I am. And she says, my name is Izumi Aizawa, and my quirk is called Fenrir, the bringer of Ragnarok, and I am here to become a hero, and I've been called a villain a lot in my life, so hopefully we can get along and we can all become heroes together. And she gives a smile, a toothy smile, and everybody sees the fangs and is like scary, except for Mina. It's like, so bright. Um, um, so bright. And everybody else introduced themselves, and Izumi, who's walking out of the room at that time, was stopped by Ida, and she goes, I have heightened hearing, so you better let go of my arm before I chop your hand off. And she shows her claws, and Ida's like, okay, fine, let's go. And Izumi continues walking. Oh, crap. And everybody else introduces themselves. And now it's time for the... Okay, it just turned 11. Yeah, I like Candish. Now it's time for the quirk assessment test. Aizawa says, okay, everybody except Izumi can go outside and put on your PE clothes. And everybody asks, why everybody except Izumi? And he goes, I've lived with Izumi her entire life. Oh, except for a few months. But I lived with her entire life, and I know what her quirk can do. So everybody else go out, I need to test your quirks. So everybody does it, and Izumi asks her father if she can go and test her quirk with them. And he goes, if you want to, I'm not going to be putting you on the scoreboard. And she goes, put me on the scoreboard, god damn it, old man. And Aizawa goes, fine. So he starts tracking hers, and she has to resist the urge of her dog instincts of chasing the ball when she throws it as hard as possible. And it lands past Bakugo's score. Yes, she's stronger than Bakugo. She gets roughly 845.6 beers. And Bakugo got cannon because he still bullied little kids and people he can easily push around with his quirk. Everybody else got cannon. Mineta got last, and he wasn't expelled this time because I have a scene for him to have. And they go back into the changing room, and Mineta says to Kaminari that the seniors left them a gift. And Izumi's ear twitches backwards to face the wall while she's changing into some clean clothes from her exercise that she got. And she hears Mineta saying, the seniors left us a peephole. And she tells Jiro to stab through the hole in the wall right here now, and Jiro does so. And Mineta gets a red hot poker to the eye. No, a poke in the eye by Jiro, and he flies back. And Kaminari says, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that if I were you." And Mina uses a little bit of her acid to melt the wall, and she used just enough acid to melt what the wall was made out of and have it drip down over the hole. Because there's some acid that can melt, cause heat, and some acids, when they mix, they cause heat and start melting each other or negating each other. And this heat is what melted the wall and drooped it down, because I'm giving Mina somewhat of a boost. She can make whatever acid she wants, but the more acidic it is, the more it taxes on her skin. So, God damn it. So Izumi passed with flying colors, and she got just barely slower than Ida by 0.01 of a second. So, it's now a week later, and it's the heroes versus villains, and it. I'm changing Hagakure's quirk a little, and her quirk is illusion, and one of the illusions that she casted when she was little was to make herself invisible, but she can't turn it off for some reason. So she's still invisible, but she still can make illusions. So Izumi and Hagakure are now the villains. Well, Ida and Bakugo are the heroes, and he's like, damn right, I get to go destroy those villains. And he spits villains at Izumi, and Mina's about to throw acid at Bakugo for disrespecting Izumi, when Izumi just growled at Bakugo with teeth showing, and he goes, whatever. And on the inside, he's shaking from fear, because he just feels this unwavering feeling to just have a flight response to her growl. And so he gets in position, and Izumi says to Hagakure, can you make illusions of her all around the building and different scenes? And Hagakure's like, I can make scenes, but I need a 360 view of the scene. And Izumi says, perfect. So she pulls out her phone and shows her images of crime scenes. And Higakure is like, oh, why are you going to make me make that? She goes, because when you're a hero, you got to see this stuff on a daily basis, and you got to deal with it. So Hagakure uses her quirk to make illusions of corpses, mangled bodies, villains running after people, everything that you could think of. And they get to this, or Ida and Baka walk in, and they see this stuff, and Ida, being the stick of his ass, vomits at this, because he's never seen this before, and he didn't expect this. And Baku, who expected this because he paid attention to everybody's quirk, it's like, the villain in the class is probably killed and probably has pictures of her freaking sadistic takedowns of people, so probably gonna have the illusions of dead bodies, and expected this. And Ida's like, oh, what is happening? And all of a sudden they smell this rotten stench, and Izumi transformed into her wolf form for like 10 seconds, and just had a heavy breath, and just took a very deep breath out, breathing all into the hallway. And they just see this dark fog roll out of her mouth. And she's used this multiple times to scare people because this fog has a sweet scent of decay from a corpse. It's a sickly sweet scent. And Hagakure asks, what did she just do? And she says that I just released a fog that smells like decay, so it makes the illusion seem realer. And Bakugo, smelling this, starts to vomit. And he goes, okay, we gotta get this over with. And so he runs up and past all the illusions, being like, oh, the stench is getting worse. And Izumi turns off the lights and tells Hagakure to make a scene of a massacre of the rest of the class. And Hagakure asks, why do you want me to do that? And Izumi says, it's going to make Bakugo freak the hell out. Make sure I'm covered in blood too. And Hagakure is like, okay. And she starts getting scared. And, oh, I have a call. Um, um, I can't get it right this second. So you're just going to have to see that number. So, ooh, we have the Celestials. Anyway, um, it's now Bakugo just ran into the room and he smells stench of death and decay. And he doesn't see the floating gas mask behind the door because he's not paying attention to that. But Hagakure took off 90% of her clothes except for the gas mask that she was told to keep on by Izumi so she doesn't vomit. And he sees Izumi covered in blood and bile and just like grinning madly, being like, "You're finally here!" And everybody in the cameras are just seeing Izumi grinning and saying these strange words. And it's like, what's happening? And All Might, who was like, "What is Hagakure's quirk again?" Because he's teaching. They all say Hagakure's quirk is illusion. All Might goes, He texts Aizawa saying, what kind of pictures does Izumi have on her phone? And Aizawa says, uh, she's a crime scene analyst for some people, for some officers on her part-time job. And All Might goes, oh, oh God. And everybody's like, what's going on? And he goes, Izumi is a forensic journalist for some police officers by for for a part-time job. And um, um she's she just showed Hagakure some very gruesome images and had her make the illusions. That's why he points at one of the cameras that has vomit on the floor. They vomited and they had a very disgusting scene. And Izumi's smiling at this because she's reenacting one of the murders that she's seen. And they go, what do you mean murders? And he goes, a crime scene journalist or a forensic journalist is someone who makes a documentation of everything that happens at a murder or a robbery or any kind of crime that leaves evidence, and they are supposed to bag, tag, and take pictures of all the evidence that they see. And he points to Izumi and says that she was on a case called the Jigsaw case, and she saw this guy after she walked into a room, and she saw this guy standing there, and he said, do you want to play a game? So she's kind of reenacting that incident that she saw with, and he points at all the students with you guys, and they get kind of strange looks on them and says, what? And he goes, yeah, the biggest thing that they know is that Izumi is very tough-minded and she can take a lot of abuse before she actually cracks, and the only way she actually cracks is when she's in a dumbed down state from her quirk. And Mina goes, "It's doggo state. It's doggo mode. It's called doggo mode." And everybody goes, "What?" Mina goes, "If she overuses her quirk, she goes into doggo mode, and you gotta throw this." And she pulls out a ball from her bag and says, if she overuses her quirk, which is that big form you saw earlier, if she overuses that, she goes into what's called a doggo mode, and this is the only thing to calm her down. And she squeezes it and lets it go, and they see Izumi's ear twitch, and Izumi has no choice but to move her ears to where the sound's coming from, and she points her finger towards the camera, her pointer finger, and takes her middle finger and flips the camera off. And Mina starts laughing her butt off because she just got the attention of Izumi from a mile away. And everybody's like, what just happened? And Mina goes, she heard the ball. So she puts it back in the bag in a sealed container that has no sound come out of it, and so it doesn't get squeezed. And it's now the fight between Bakugo and Izumi, and Ida comes running through the room, but when he comes running full speed into the room, he gets clotheslined by Hagakure, who put her hand on the doorknob and was waiting for Ida to run in, and Ida, being a runner, went into professional sprint mode and started running at full speed, low to the ground. So he was running low to the ground, and he gets there, and his neck hits Hagakure's arm, which is currently connected to the handle of the door. And he goes flying into the window and out the building. And he lands on the sidewalk on his back. And he's like, that hurt. And Hagakure is like, what? That's what you get for running into a room with an invisible woman. And Bakugo saw the Ida flying out of the room and like, damn extra, and continues fighting with Izumi. And Izumi's been scratching at his clothes. Not him, his clothes. And every time she lands a hit, another scratch appears on him and his clothes. And like 5 minutes later, there's like a minute left of the round, and Izumi finally cuts one more thread, and his shirt falls off. I know this is corny, but his shirt fell off from all the scratching and holes that were left, and he goes, God damn it, you damn extra. And she sees this, and her nose starts to bleed a little, and she goes, who knew that the bully from elementary and middle school, for a lot of people, is actually ripped and hot, even though he wears baggy clothes so you can't see it. And he goes, God damn extra, villain extra. And she goes, time to cut the rest of you up. And she starts going at faster speed, and Bakugo's bleeding at this point out of, you know how people say death from 1,000 cuts? Bakugo's probably had 100 like cuts on his torso. And Bakugo finally gets one more cut, and he falls down, passing out from blood loss. And so she runs over, grabs him, and runs him to Recovery Girl as fast as possible. And Recovery Girl heals him because she was at the entrance of the city waiting for people to be injured. And so Izumi drops him off there and says, we won. And she runs back, picks up Hagakure on her back, and starts running to the observation room. And Ida, who's currently finally waking up from landing on his back, sees Recovery Girl, gets kissed by Recovery Girl because her quirk is like that, wakes up and goes to the observation room, and the cuts weren't deep enough on Bakugo to leave scars, so he gets his chest back perfect, and he doesn't have a shirt on when he walks into the room, and every girl gets a nosebleed. I know it's cheesy, but yeah. Except for Mina. So, be right back. This is basically what Izumi looks like. With blue hair instead. Blue hair instead. She has a breastplate on. She has short shorts on. And she has chains and cuffs on her ankles and wrists. So, okay. So it's now time for another time skip. It's a few weeks later, and Izumi's gotten a lot closer to Mina, and Mina's gotten a lot closer to Izumi. So now they cuddle together a lot, but they don't do anything outwardly together. Oh, 56%. Oops. 52 minutes. Okay. I can deal with that. But it's now the USJ, which is a month later, and everybody looks at Izumi while she's just sitting on the bus, taking a nap on Mina's shoulder, and Mina's just taking a nap and cuddling with Izumi, and they just look at them and go, "Why don't they just go out already?" And Bakugo gets jealous because he wanted the dog for himself. He wanted the damn mutt for himself, in his words. He looks back and sees that they're comfortable and they've had fun, and he's like, "Why did the alien get the goddamn dog? I wanted the dog." And he goes, "Damn it." And so, going for somewhat of a love triangle. Don't worry, this love triangle is not going to be a venomous love triangle. So, Izumi feels this, or everybody sees this plane flying through the bus, and it hits Izumi in the head. Everybody's like, "Where did that plane come from?" They look back, and Bakugo's just like, "Don't goddamn look at me. I didn't throw it." Everybody looks back and be like, "Who threw it?" So they look at each other, and everybody's like, "I didn't do it. I didn't do it." So they think, "Okay, well, who threw it?" And Izumi wakes up from it because she felt something poke her, and she's somewhat of a light sleeper. And she jolts up and accidentally wakes up Mina, and Mina goes, What, huh?" And she sees this plane on the ground and picks it up and opens it and reads it. It's like, "Oh, it's T." And Izumi, knowing what Mina knowing what Mina says about T, goes, "Oh God, who's it for?" And Mina says, "I'm not telling." She goes, "You tell about T for everybody, so don't give me that crap." And Mina goes, "Fine, it's your tea." And Izumi takes the plane and goes, "What?" And Izumi reads it and goes, "Huh?" And she looks at Mina and goes, "I know you didn't write this." And Mina goes, "Yeah, I didn't." And she goes, "This is a goddamn love letter." And Bakugo, who is ignoring this conversation, just sits there quietly, thinking if him throwing that plane was a good idea. And Izumi saying, "This is a goddamn love letter from someone in class saying that they've loved me ever since they first saw me, and that even though I'm a mutt, I'm a sexy mutt, but that's weird. So Izumi looks at this letter and starts thinking whose handwriting looks like this, and all of a sudden Aizawa jumps up from his sleeping bag and says, "Okay, all you problem children, we're here." Izumi walks off the bus and her animal instincts are like, "Don't go in there. Do not do it." And Izumi's like, Dad, we shouldn't go in there. And he goes, why? And she goes, I don't get this good feeling from this place. And he goes, it's fine. It's just the unforeseen simulation joint. And she goes, I know. I'm pretty much immune to physical damage. I'm pretty much immune to fire and ice. But I do not want to go in there. And he goes, why? And she goes, I don't know. I just don't want to go in there. And he goes, okay. So everybody back on the bus. And before anybody could notice, the bus gets teleported into the USJ, in the center of the USJ, and 13 is just sitting at the door waiting for them to enter, and Aizawa gets out of the bus and says, 13! Villain attack! Prepare! And 13 looks into the center of the USJ and sees the bus, the entire bus, and Aizawa only. And she looks at the other zones and sees portals opening over there and getting ready for a fight. And a few children are thrown onto the stairs where 13 is, and everybody's like, what the hell just happened? And Izumi, Froppy, and Mineta are on the shipwreck. I'm going to go into just a little bit of detail, and then the rest gets a quick summary. But Froppy says the idea of them jumping off the shipwreck and into the... Ooh. Ooh! I love that. The reptile deku. It's freaking hilarious. But Froppy says the idea of them jumping off onto land, and Izumi says, good. Oh, ooh, I have an idea. And she transforms into dog mode, and she just leans her head over and she breathes in, and one of her abilities from the Fenrir is the ability to create anything in her mouth while she's in dog form, and she creates magma, and goes and releases all the magma, and the magma falls onto the water and starts making the water boil, and she goes, that should knock them out in 3, 2, 1. They all get knocked out, and then she goes, it's gonna hurt, and she basically barfs out a giant thing of ice, and this ice just cools down the water significantly after shattering from the temperature difference. And all the people are safe, just knocked out in the water and floating on the water. And she jumps onto the ice because she prefers not to get wet because she smells bad when she's wet. But she's perfectly fine getting wet. And it's now time for the Nomu. The Nomu walks in. Izumi sees what it's doing to her dad, and she's like, God damn it! She transforms into her wolf form, runs up, bites down on the Nomu, and breathes this noxious gas onto the Nomu, and the Nomu starts to dissolve in the gas. And Shigaraki's like, you cheated! And he runs up and grabs Izumi's leg, and nothing happens. All of a sudden, Izumi looks at him with this snarl on, and she's starting to turn more and more dog because she's starting to overuse her quirk. She can only use it for a few seconds every 10 minutes, and she's already been in it for a minute, and she's starting to go full dog, and she just looks at this kid who's grabbed onto her leg and starts snarling at him, and she lets go of the Nomu, and the Nomu's head was melted. And she looks at him and starts growling and snarling even louder. And he runs away and says, Kurogiri, get me the hell out of here. So they run off, and the villains are taken care of. Aizawa doesn't get decay like in the anime. Izumi starts going full dog mode, and she starts acting like a destroyer of world. And Mina, seeing this, takes out a ball and squeezes it. Izumi immediately flicks her face towards the ball. And Mina squeezes it a few more times, and Izumi runs over and is about to snap at Mina's hand when Mina threw it behind Izumi. And Izumi transformed into the smaller version of a dog, and ran and jumped and grabbed it with her mouth and ran off. Ooh. Um, I'm gonna link something in the description, and if you guys want me to do my version of that what if, you guys tell me, because I think it would be cool. So, if you guys like it, tell me in the description. If you guys tell me in the comments, the one in the description and my Discord link. So I'm gonna end it here because I want to get that in the description, and hope you guys enjoyed. Bye.